Alright, Ronan MMA, welcome back to the channel. So, Charles Oliviera vs. Beneil Dariush has been confirmed and made official for UFC 288. That fight card seems to be getting better and better. When this fight was initially announced to be in the works, I did a video on this giving my reaction and early prediction. I didn't have as many subscribers or viewers at the time, so I figured I would do another one now that it has been made official and give another early prediction slash reaction to this fight. Before we do, please like and subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. I'm going to thank you in advance, so thank you very much for your subscription. And don't be one of the 80%, dude, because 80% of the people that watch my videos don't subscribe. And that's real. That's a real number, okay? So don't be the kind of guy or girl, because that's also something that's changed. Once had 0% female viewers whatsoever, but now we've got a little bit. So don't be the kind of guy or girl to not subscribe. Or do the thing that you've already been thanked for, because I'm Canadian, eh? So don't take my politeness as a weakness, please, and just do it, eh? So let's get into it, okay? When I first made this video, a while back when this fight was rumored, I said that this fight to me was pretty much 50-50, and I got a few dislikes for that take, and I'm not quite sure why, but I'll give my opinion once again. I think that I'm even leaning more heavily towards Beneil Dariush than I initially was when this fight was just rumors. Beneil Dariush has looked incredibly impressive in his last, lots of fights, right? He's on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fight win streak, which is incredible, especially at the lightweight division. It is not an easy task, and I know Charles Oliveira had a very impressive win streak in his own right before his loss to Islam Makhachev, but, the reason why I would lean more towards Beneil Dariush is because, one, we've seen Beneil Dariush get rocked in fights before and be able to come back and not get dropped either, right? In his fight against Drakkar Klose, there's that meme of, Joe Rogan, DC, and John Anik's reaction to his comeback knockout of Drakkar Klose. He had gotten wobbled pretty badly in that fight, and then Drakkar Klose went in for the kill, and Dariush hit him back, hurt him, and finished him off. Whereas with Charles Oliveira, when he gets hurt or rocked, he always goes to the ground. I don't know what happened to my voice there, but that's okay. He gets knocked down in every fight. And while I think that some of his knockdowns are not true knockdowns, I think they're kind of like Nate Diaz knockdowns where he knows, I'm comfortable here, I can catch a breath, and most of the guys that, are capable of knocking me down on the feet aren't going to want to go to the ground with me anyways. We saw against Islam how that can be flawed. That can be a flawed approach to recovering, because if there is somebody who is willing to go to the ground with you, and while Charles Oliveira is an incredible Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu practitioner, he is not invincible on the ground, off his back, or on top, right? We've seen in his career him get submitted before against guys that I would argue are not as prestigious, not as well decorated in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as Beneil Dariush is. Anthony Pettis submitted Charles Oliveira, right? And while Anthony Pettis does have a lot of good submission wins on his record, I don't know that he's on the level of a Beneil Dariush. If you go to Beneil Dariush's wiki and look up his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu credentials, it is actually incredible, right? He was the world no-gi champion in 2010 for brown belt, 2009 for purple absolute, 2008 for blue. So like 3 years in a row in his respected division, he won the championship every one of those years. He also won the 2010 brown absolute, the same year that he won the world no-gi champion for brown belt, Pan American champion in 2009 while he had his blue belt, world championship second place in 2012 for brown, Pan American champion second place brown, like world champion third place 2009, world no-gi champ. Like, the guy's got a bunch of accolades in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and we've also seen that he can hang with guys on the ground that were once thought of as being like incredibly dangerous, such as Tony Ferguson. And I know that Charles Oliveira handled Tony on the ground very well, and almost snapped his arm in half. And Beneil ripped his knee. So they both like taking limbs from guys that are, by all accounts, really good on the mat. Beneil Dariush, man, that Mateusz Gamrot win, to me, is more impressive than a lot of wins at lightweight for anybody. Jeez, my nose is fucked. I just had to go outside. It's like minus 25 out there, so I think my nose is a little... It's like, what are you doing coming back in this warm house? But, man, Beneil is the type of guy where I could see him hurting Charles Oliveira, and I could see him hopping on something just as quick as Islam Makhachev did. This is why, up until the Alexander Volkanovski fight, I thought that Beneil Dariush had the best chance of beating Islam Makhachev. Now, we don't know how Beneil would do against him yet, obviously, and the Alexander Volkanovski fight doesn't really tell us much about how Beneil might do against him, but it did show us that Islam's grappling is not, you can negate it to a certain extent. And Beneil Dariush has incredible anti-grappling at the same time as having extremely good offensive grappling, like Mateusz Gamrot. Again, tried to take him down multiple times in that fight. I bet money on Beneil Dariush. I thought that he was being completely disrespected by the odds makers, and I won a good chunk of money because I got him at like a plus 265 or something like that. And man, people keep writing him off. Like he'll get a great win, and people just forget about him. And I think maybe because in his last 3 they were decisions, okay, but he was fighting really good competition. Carlos Diego Ferreira, Tony Ferguson, and this is before Chandler, did what he did. I will never forgive him for that. And then the Mateusz Gamrot one. I mean, dude, who's finishing Mateusz Gamrot? Like, him and Arman Tsarukyan went to an incredible decision, and he's extremely tough. But he's also got a sub over Drew Dober. He beat Thiago Moises, who is also incredible at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It was a unanimous decision win. He subbed Frank Camacho, knocked out Drakkar Klose, knocked out Scott Holtzman with that spinning back fist, which was fucking awesome. And while his win streak does not include the names of, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, and stuff like that, I think that those guys, I think that I don't want to say that they overestimated Charles's ability off of his back, but I think that Islam kind of exposed that when he does go to his back, sometimes, not all the time, sometimes I think he's trying to bait you in. But other times, if you jump right away with no hesitation, he is hurt enough that you can mount your offense against him. Because, Islam jumped on that quick, hit him with a couple shots, and then immediately jumped to choke. So if you don't give him room to breathe on the ground, once he's been hurt, I think you could get the job done. And I think that Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje may have been overthinking it a little bit. Like, hey, I don't want to go there. And I could see Justin Gaethje not wanting to go there, but Dustin Poirier is pretty well versed on the mat as well. Obviously not at the level of a Beneil Dariush or a Charles Oliveira, but he is definitely, he strangled Michael Chandler. It was good. Charles Oliveira wasn't able to when he had his back, so it's because if you look at Charles, people used to the narrative that he was a quitter, right? There was the one fight that was weird. The one that stands out to me is the Max Holloway fight, because he took a weird shot or a weird punch to like the neck area and kind of went to the cage and quit after that. Like, he was like, no more. Now, I'm pretty sure that was due to an actual nerve issue going on in his neck. And for those of you that don't know, if you don't have a neck injury, I do. Pinched nerves fucking suck. And I can't imagine being locked in a cage with a guy like Max Holloway when that's actually occurring, because it's not like they're being pinched nonstop 24/7, right? You'll do something that will inflame the surrounding area, and then things get pushed out kind of, and then it starts pinching it. And when my neck is inflamed, it's like some of the worst pain ever, because it goes up into the back of your head. You get these stingers. They feel like shocks mixed with fire. It's like electricity mixed with fire. It's like, ugh. And also, it would be real hard to throw punches, because you can barely, like, I can move my arm up good today, but when it's pinched, it's kind of like stuck, you know? And so while it looked weird, I can understand him giving up, I guess. Then the other one that comes to mind, and it gets talked about a lot because Paul Felder's on the commentary team, is when Paul Felder finished him. And for those of you that don't remember, Paul Felder finished him on the mat. Like, he hit Charles Oliveira with a good shot. Charles it was like a delayed knockdown, kind of like what we saw with Shane Burgos and Edson Barbosa. And there's been a few other ones since, where it's like you hit them and then they look okay, and then all of a sudden they're not okay. That's kind of what it looked like with the Charles Oliveira Paul Felder one. And I think he hit him like right on the forehead or something. But it was weird. But point being, Paul Felder finished him up on the ground with elbows. So he followed him down there and was okay to do that, right? And as I said earlier, Anthony Pettis choked him out on the ground as well. So I could see them getting into an exchange where I would favor Beneil Dariush's chin, right? Because Charles Oliveira gets dropped so often. And if he does get dropped against Beneil Dariush, I don't see Beneil shying away from a bit of a grappling match with him, especially when he's been hurt and rocked already. Like, I think that the last few guys Charles Oliveira finished, they were so scared to go to the ground that they probably missed an opportunity to finish. And I know that when you're in there, it's like risk versus reward kind of deal. But, man, all you need is like one or two more, right? Once you've got him to the mat, if you can land one accurate follow-up shot while he's on the ground with gravity and momentum on your side, you could put his lights out. Because, as I said, we know Charles Oliveira doesn't have the best chin. And he's got, he also, another factor to take in, the reason why I would favor Beneil Dariush's chin over Charles Oliveira's in a bit of a firefight is not just because we've seen Charles Oliveira get dropped so much, but it's because he takes a lot of damage, like, besides those knockdowns. And he's had a much longer mixed martial arts career where he has taken a hell of a lot more damage than Beneil Dariush is. Like, Beneil Dariush is 22-4, okay? He's 22-4. The one loss that drives me nuts is Alexander Hernandez knocked him out. That is unacceptable. But in fairness, that was 5 years ago, so we'll forgive him for that. Alexander Hernandez was looking incredible at the beginning of his career before Donald Cowboy Cerrone decided he was going to teach the young man a lesson. And then, he got knocked out by Edson Barbosa, which, again, in 2017, dude, who didn't? Okay. Michael Chiesa subbed him with a neck crank. And this would have been at lightweight, where Michael Chiesa should have been illegal for him to be there. He looks like a giant man at welterweight. He looks like he could literally fight middleweight, and he was over there fighting at fucking lightweight. And then, dude, this one's also bad. His loss, it's weird. His losses are weird, but this one was 9 years ago against Ramsey Nijem, who has not gone on to have the best career. Charles Oliveira, though, 33 wins and 9 losses. The guy's had 43 fights, professional MMA fights, to Beneil's 27. So he's upped him by almost 20, okay? 16 more. And in every single one of his last fights, we have seen him get hurt. We've seen him get hurt by Islam. Islam dropped him and then finished him up with the choke. Justin Gaethje rocked him, like, early. Dustin Poirier pieced him up in that first round, had him stumbling all over the place. Michael Chandler hurt him in their fight. It's Even Kevin Lee had some good moments. Charles Oliveira is a fantastic submission artist. If you have a good top game, a good pressuring top game, you can kind of negate his attacks. Kevin Lee, while he did get submitted, I believe it was in the third round, it was off of a horrible shot. Horrible shot. And the reason that he did it was because he was getting hurt on the feet. Charles Oliveira was doing those jumping front kicks, and Kevin Lee couldn't seem to get out of the way of his punches. But in the first round, they ended up being on the mat, and Kevin Lee was able to defend any submission attempt that Charles Oliveira threw his way, which were mostly leg attacks, and was able to land good ground and pound. And, the David Tamer fight, even, he took some damage. And then once you start getting into his earlier career, like 5 years ago, you see a lot of, we got a TKO. We see him get subbed by Ricardo Lamas, Anthony Pettis. Oh, it was an esophagus injury against Max Holloway. Cub Swanson knocked him out. Frankie Edgar beat him. Unanimous. Donald Cowboy Cerrone knocked him out. These are way far back now, but you get my point. The guy's taken a lot of damage, whereas Beneil Dariush has not taken nearly as much. It's a very, very interesting fight and a very fun fight, and I am hoping that Beneil Dariush can get it done. And that's not because I don't like Charles Oliveira. I am a big Charles Oliveira fan, but I want to see Beneil get his chance, and it would be a shame if he had the same kind of ending to his career that Tony Ferguson had, where we never got to see him fight for undisputed gold, even though it was, absolutely deserved. Like 100%. Beneil Dariush kind of gets passed up on. Again, he's not very well known. People kind of forget about him. Also, he looks way fucking older than he is. Like, I know he made that joke about how the UFC wants him to retire or die of old age before they give him a title shot. He was born in 89, dude. He's 5 years older than me. I mean, so he's not young in terms of fighting, but he's not extremely old either. He's like 34, or he will be 34 in May. So I want him to get his due before he never does again, because that's what happened to Tony, right? Tony stepped up for the UFC, took the fight against Justin Gaethje for the interim title fight, which he didn't have to do, but he did it anyways, and he got fucked up in that fight, and then hasn't been the same since, and will never get a shot at UFC gold. And it's unfortunate because he was in the prime, like, pinnacle point of his career. 11 fight win streak, I don't even remember. 10, can't remember, but incredible. And then just got totally fucked, and I don't want that same thing to happen to Beneil. And we've seen Charles Oliveira have multiple title fights. We've seen him fight all the guys in the top 5. So if Beneil wins, it creates a lot more matchup opportunities. I commend Charles for accepting this fight, though, because it seemed like a lot of guys don't want it. And yeah, man, I reckon that Beneil Dariush and Charles Oliveira get into a firefight on the feet. They're swinging in the pocket. Charles Oliveira with his nice, crisp hooks. Maybe rocks Beneil. Thinks he's got him. Pressures him up against the fence. Beneil throws something wild and hurts Oliveira. Oliveira hops down onto his back or gets knocked down there, thinking he's going to get a second to recover, and I don't think Beneil gives him that. And I think Beneil jumps down there, and it will look similar to the Islam finish. I don't know that he gets an arm triangle, but I could see him subbing Charles Oliveira. And it's not outlandish to say, because we've got recency bias here. We've seen only one guy in Islam Makhachev be able to sub Charles Oliveira. But if you go back further in his career, there's a lot of guys that probably had no business subbing him. And had it been a strict Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu matchup, Charles Oliveira would probably strangle them to death. But if it's a fight where you can get hit, get hurt, all this stuff, then, it changes things. So Though I wouldn't say that that's like 100% what's going to happen. That's my kind of feeling on how that fight may go right now. Percent chances of, I would give it, I said at, the beginning of the video, I did a video on this a while ago saying 50-50. I think it would be more 55-45 in the favor of Beneil Dariush. It'll be curious to see who closes as the favorite, but it'll be curious. I said I'll be curious. What the fuck? Jesus, dude. All right. Now I'm going to go do another video on Sergey Pavlovich and Curtis Blades. So don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to thank you in advance. Thank you very much for your subscription, because I'm Canadian, eh? So don't be one of the 80% of people. Dude, don't you want to be like the top 20% of based humans who subscribe to me because I'm thanking them in advance? You should do that. You can watch all my videos. Get here early, my guy. Okay? So you can say I knew about this kid before anybody else did. All right. So thank you very much, and I will see you at the next one. Bye-bye.